Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Lawrence Howarth with the Richardson Chamber of Commerce and the Richardson Economic Development Partnership. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today, Selling and Customer Service from a Distance During and Post COVID-19. With the recent pandemic, and it's hardly recent anymore, it's probably 3 months old, a lot of things have changed in the world of business, and one of those changes is how we prospect, how we attract customers, how we serve customers. And so what we've done is we've assembled four very experienced and world experienced individuals to talk about this and to give us some insights and some of their thoughts as to how it's changed. Again, my name is Lawrence Howarth. I'm with the Director of Mayor's Office of International Business for Richardson and the Vice President of International Business for Richardson Chamber of Commerce. My co-moderator here is Beth. Beth, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you all again for joining us. Yes, I'm Beth Coleman. I'm the Director of Economic Development. I'm also the staff liaison for our International Concierge Committee, and they're the committee that helped us put together this program today. And the International Concierge Committee was created about 4 or 5 years ago now, originally primarily to promote the Chamber's soft landing services offered by our Chamber members. The group did a fantastic job of that. We won several global awards for our soft landing services. In addition to that, the group meets monthly to hear international business speakers in the area to address some of the leading international business issues, the current international business issues. As I said, we do meet monthly. In addition to hearing from speakers, it provides our committee members and guests an opportunity to network. Recently, we've started partnering with many of the international chambers of commerce in the area and other international organizations. We've invited them to present to our group. They've provided some excellent programs, and we've built some great relationships with these international organizations. If you're interested in joining us, we'd love to talk to you. You can email Shannon at richardsonchamber.com for more information. Our lead sponsor for the International Concierge Committee is Seville CPA firm. They've been our sponsor for several years. They provide many accounting CPA services for a variety of industries. We appreciate their continued support and sponsorship, and we welcome the Seville guests who are joining us this morning.
We have, as I said, 4 panelists. The first two, Alejandro Nieto and Don Clark. Alejandro is the president of Nieto Global Enterprises and a global partner with Symmetry Group International. Alejandro will tell you a little bit more about he and his business in his presentation. Don Clark is the president of Summit Consulting, and same thing, he'll go over a little more details. And we have 2 other panelists. We have John Worthington and Samantha Savici with IBT Online. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of our agenda, we're going to start with a presentation from Alejandro and Don Clark. We've organized the webinar in three sections. The first section for Alejandro is the outreach, selling to customers, serving customers from afar. Don Clark is going to tell you a little bit about the receiving end and organizing the companies around that concept. And then John and Samantha are going to give us an overview of the whole online part of this. And the webinar is a good example of how the world is going online even more than it was, especially because of the COVID issue. So without ado, and I'm going to switch it over to Alejandro. So please take the screen, Alejandro.
Hello, can you hear me?
You can. You have to speak up a little bit.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lawrence. Good morning, everyone. As Lawrence mentioned, I have had the privilege to manage and lead global sales teams in different regions of the world. And definitely my objective here is to share with you, I would say, my thoughts, my opinion about 4 quick topics around servicing customers and, of course, selling under this virtual environment. Can everybody see my screen, Lawrence?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So some of the challenges, I think with this COVID-19 situation, I mean, everybody of us is being impacted. And what I can say is that it's not just, of course, the selling part of the customer services part, but mostly this is changing our lives. There are some analysts, some authors, some academics that even are mentioning that this is a change of era. This is a change of epoch that is definitely transforming the world. Basically around the notion that our time and our space will never be the same. And believe me, I used to spend probably 60% of my time on the road, on planes, traveling all the time. Now with the confinement, this has been a big change in my life, a big change in terms of what I used to do. And of course, this is also a change in terms of how I'm spending my time and the space that I'm having now for my work and for my personal life. So in terms of selling and service customers, there are several challenges. I briefly will highlight some of those. First of all, the fact that there is no face-to-face meetings right now, very difficult in some cases and for some cultures that are used to this type of interactions. Of course, limited travel, the social distancing part that of course is required now, and the new environments. I mean, for many people probably were not familiar to this type of virtual meetings, remote WebEx sessions. And of course, this is new, just the fact of kind of being sharing screens, being kind of be ready to mute, unmute, etc. Avoid background noises is something that we are getting us used to do. Communication skills, definitely we need to be developing additional communication skills, not only speaking, but using some of the visuals that we can have available. And definitely we need to be very, very, I would say, accurate and strong in terms of building impactful messaging. And we're going to talk about that. Some technical skills are also required because I'm sure that everybody of us have experienced sessions where there are technical problems and not everybody can probably be connected as we expected. And when you are managing sales teams, probably the fact that you are challenged to get the same or more accountability from your teams without the direct contact or face-to-face contact that you used to have is very challenging. Now, the difficulties that we encounter in terms of the sales processes, I would say that the main challenge here is, in my opinion, connecting with the audience, know your audience. and therefore being able to articulate the right sales messages. Connecting with the audience is the main challenge. So how can we do that? And this is something that we do a lot of in the training seminars that we run globally for Symmetry Group. Symmetry Group is a Singapore-based training and coaching organization servicing multinational companies, by the way. So the first part is, of course, here is us, ourselves. So this is, in many cases, how we focus all the reality. And I'm sure that many of you have seen all these PowerPoints at the beginning, showing all the credentials of the company. We are here, we are headquartered there, we have all this international presence, we have this customer base, etc. But we never think about if this is completely relevant to the customer. So it's the you, but what you have to face and what you have to address is the audience. And by that, I do not mean to know the names and the titles of the persons who are attending a sales session, but you really need to know the audience world, and I'm going to talk about that. But you need to be aware of something else. You are not alone. You have competition. And of course, the competition is going to address the audience world as well. The fact is that you really need to focus and try to identify what is the main connection of the exclusive area where you, your company, your services have a good understanding of your audience. That is what is going to be, let's say, the foundation of your value proposition and where your main differentiation is going to be. So therefore, what do you need to do in order to connect with the audience? You definitely need to do your homework. You need to know what the issues, what the needs, what the challenges, what the concerns, but also what the opportunities are for this company, for this audience, for this group of people that you are addressing. And on the other hand, you need to be able to know their world. You need to be able to know their ecosystem. You need to know who their clients are, who their competition is, their vendors, their suppliers, stakeholders, shareholders, staff, all these different components of the ecosystem. The more knowledgeable, the more savvy you are about the world of the audience you are addressing, that is going to be the best way of having a good connection with the audience. The audience is going to realize that you did the homework. So, and how can you then deliver your messages? Very, very important. First of all, you need to create relevant content for that audience. And that relevant content is going to come from the knowledge that you have from your audience's world. You need to use visual language. Of course, PowerPoints are a great help, but you need also to be able to share stories. Storytelling is a fantastic way of connecting with the audience. For some reason, our brain is wired in such a way that we remember stories. So always using stories is a great way of connecting, as well as analogies. We need not only to present, but being able to ask questions that are relevant to the world of that audience. You need to use a lot of the technique that is you phrasing, which is that you are definitely placing or positioning a messaging in terms of your audience, right? Always referring to them and not exactly to you, because I think what is relevant to them is what is going to impact of the messages that you are delivering. You need to have a strong objective, which in some cases, and mainly for some sales teams, is really not definitely fully addressed. And of course, an effective structure. You need to be very disciplined in terms of how you deliver your messages. For this purpose, and I'm not going to elaborate on this, at Symmetry, we have what we call the OASIS model, which is definitely have a clear objectives, audience insight, which is what I was referring before, a clear structure of your presentation, usually with an introduction, main body of with 3 or 4 main topics and a conclusion, create impactful messaging, and so what, which at the end of the day, you really need to address what does this mean for the customer? And very important, the how. It's not only what you are going to do in terms of delivering messages for selling, but how you are going to do this. Of course, on remote sessions, virtual session, your main asset is your voice. And of course, different components of your voice is starting with tone modulation, pace. But guess what? One of the most important resources that you have to use your voice is precisely pause. Using pause will allow you to definitely have the time to kind of think what is going to next thing that you are going to say, give you the time to definitely create some kind of the momentum that you need in your interaction with customers. Even if you have video capabilities on virtual sessions, of course, it's not the same as you have on face-to-face meeting, but eye contact is important. The movement probably here is not that relevant, but what is very, very important is the gestures and the facial expressions that you make when you are making a presentation before an audience. So the what and the how, very, very relevant, and use these techniques. Of course, there is a whole lot of things that we can say about that. There is whole kind of training sessions and webinars we can share. The last point that I want to make briefly is that social distancing does not necessarily need to create emotional distancing. My personal experience has been that whenever you are apart, like we are in most of the cases today, you need to be able to try to create some type of bond, just kind of sharing some personal insights now that we are all affected by this pandemic. Share some personal information, ask to your parties, about that, and create that closer, I would say, relationship that in a way, even if you are in front of a computer, can make you be closer to your customers. That definitely can help you to deliver the messages that you need. Being closer, not only to the brain, but to the heart of people is definitely one of the main lessons that I have learned over this period of time. Thank you very much. And of course, I will be open for any questions you might have. Lawrence? Hello? Lawrence, can you hear me?
Alejandro, this is Don. I can hear you. Can
Yes,
you hear me?
yes, we
Okay.
can hear. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do some questions at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Don,
Great. Lawrence, are you seeing my slides?
I am.
Wonderful. Let me shift into presentation mode here. So working with Lawrence and Beth, we put together 4 questions that, based on my experiences, I'm going to try to share some lessons learned and provide some information that may be helpful to the audience. So the first question that I was asked to talk a little bit about is, and actually before I jump into this, Lawrence had asked for a quick overview of my bio or my background. So just quickly, I would share that I've got a very diverse background with over 30 years leading sales, operation, and in general management with companies from startup organizations to mid-sized companies to businesses over $1 billion. Most recently, I led the transition or transformation of the North American services business for Legrand. Legrand is a multinational company based out of Le Mans, France. And I'm going to share a lot of the experiences over the last 4 to 5 years, and particularly over the last 3 to 4 months that I had with Legrand in that role. And then finally, I've transitioned from Legrand to where I'm now president of Summit Consulting. All right, so back to the question. So as a manufacturer with a global supply chain and North American service organization, what processes did you go through to adapt to the new realities? So this is a little bit of a big picture slide here, and there's a lot on it, and I'm not going to go into tremendous detail, but I think the important message is that every company has to have a plan, a roadmap, a blueprint in a time of crisis. My experience and what I'm sharing on the slide here in the left-hand side is is a general outline for the steps that I took with the leadership team at Legrand, beginning approximately in the February timeframe, to put together our blueprint for how we were going to manage and not just survive, but ultimately thrive when the rebound happens, through the current times that we're in. So the first step is somewhat of a short-term step, and it's getting establishing what the new reality is financially. So the business plans that my leadership team and I had submitted for 2020 back in Q4 of 2019, they're out the window now. So what's the new reality look like? And to establish that, probably the most important note would be that there has to be collaboration. It can't just be the finance people. It has to include other functions, representation from sales, from your channel, and together establishing some different scenarios. What's the worst case scenario based on what we're seeing? What's the best case? What do we think the most likely case is? And then the leadership team has to make a decision. Which of those are we going to choose and then base our plan around? At Legrand, we chose the worst case scenario. We said we're going to see at least a 30% decline in revenue in 2020 versus our original plan. So that was our new starting point. The next step in this blueprint of planning is, how do we address revenue? What's our plan for a rapid recovery in revenue? Without sales, businesses don't exist. So first and foremost, what's our strategy going to be around revenue recovery? And what I would add there is it really should start with reimagining your strategy. Your products and services, the value propositions that they had before are very likely different today. So revisit your journey maps, get back in front of your customers and understand what the value proposition of your products and services are. Are they still solid? Have they changed? Are there new use cases that potentially provide new sources of revenue? The next thing is rebuilding operations. So particularly from a product manufacturing perspective, the supply chains just got hammered starting in February. At Legrand, the building control systems business unit, which I led, we had one primary manufacturing operation based in Shanghai, China. In February, we started getting calls where over 30% of the workforce at our plant in Shanghai was not returning after the Chinese New Year. And that's a reality that I think most people are familiar with. That was just the beginning point. Then we started to get hit with issues around component suppliers having to shut down their operations. So with that in mind, a total redesign of the supply chain to adjust for new demand patterns, but then also to establish resiliency in the supply chain so that if and when this happens again, smaller companies in particular may just have one manufacturing partner. They may just have one primary source of supply for components. That makes your business extremely vulnerable. In the new world, organizations need to be looking at diversifying their supply chain to create resiliency so they can adapt in situations like this that might occur in the future. And then on the services side of your business, if interacting with your customers personally is part of your business model, perhaps you dispatch service technicians to go provide services in someone's home or their business to install products and systems or service those products and systems. In today's world of no touch and social distancing, that part of your business is got to be completely redesigned. Moving into rethinking the organization, this is kind of about people. As you reimagine your strategy, there's got to be a component around organizational health. The strength of your organization is largely going to be based on your people and the talent in your organization. So, a couple of things. How do you make sure that you're retaining talent, you're recruiting talent in terms of people? How do you create an organizational structure that's streamlined so that decisions can be made quickly. And probably the most important thing is in this part of the planning is you got to over communicate with people, particularly in these times where we're all working remotely. The final bullet here in planning is around accelerating digital adoption. So I think everybody's seen that companies have had plans to automate and to improve their efficiency and productivity with technology for a long time, but those plans have been significantly increased in the environment that we find ourselves in today. So this is, again, it's a lot on the slide, but it's a big picture overview of creating a roadmap to be successful in these times. So moving on to the remaining questions, getting into some more detail around customer service and around supply chain, and in particular on this slide, what is it like from a buyer's perspective? So Alejandro talked about selling in today's environment. I'm going to present kind of from the opposite side. So from a buyer's perspective, again, using my Legrand experiences, what I have up on the slide right now, this graphic, this is everything that goes into a procurement person's day-to-day job. It's not just about procuring the components that then go to the manufacturing plant that are assembled into the product, but it's also the supply chain, it's logistics, it's around distribution and warehousing, getting materials from your manufacturing plant, in our case in Shanghai, back to a primary distribution center in Moreno Valley, California. All of a sudden, getting materials out of China to the US with the tariffs layered on top of that, significant challenges. So it's more than just a buying transaction. How are we doing it today? My buyers they're on virtual meetings, and that's the new reality in a lot of cases. Travel has been banned by a lot of companies, if not banned, significantly curtailed. So that's how we're conducting business today. So what are the challenges from a procurement perspective? Well, the supply chain it has to be significantly redesigned in a lot of companies' cases, like I spoke about a minute ago. So with that in mind, procurement has become much more strategic in today's world. So that function in an organization is looking for solutions. They're not looking to just conduct a transaction. So back to some of what Alejandro was talking about, they're going to connect best with sellers that know their business, have done their homework, that are proposing, based on their understanding, solutions that will help that procurement director and department move quickly to address new strategies. So, new strategies around supply chain, what was important 3 or 4 months ago, may be less important today, and it may be something different. So the sellers that procurement people are going to connect with are going to be the ones that bring solution and know their business. It's not just a transaction today. Some of the challenges are, my buyers were getting a lot more requests for meetings. Right now, people are getting barraged with requests to participate in webinars, or can we meet to talk about this product, this service. So that's a challenge. One of the other challenges is not being able to travel. But with that actually comes a benefit in that meetings are more efficient. So these are some of the things from a buyer's perspective that I would share. And if there's any questions, we can talk more in some of the Q&A section. So then the third question was, how dramatic is the change regarding customer service? Is remote first the future of services? So now we're talking about services. And I would say absolutely that whether it's B2B or B2C, if part of your business model is in-person contact with your customers, then a remote first offering is going to be critical to success. So in the case, and a couple of examples, I'll start with connected appliances. There's companies like Electrolux that makes appliances that has a strong smart appliance strategy, such that your your refrigerator can be connected to the internet. If it stops working, Electrolux can connect through your Wi-Fi in your house into your refrigerator and diagnose and troubleshoot and potentially fix the problem without having to send a technician out there. Same thing on the B2B side. Connected buildings, smart cities. It's projected that that marketplace is going to be over $100 billion in 3 years, and I think it's going to probably move a lot more quickly based on the current circumstances. So, your customers being able to remotely communicate with you, and that could also include self-service. So I think customers are looking to, if there's something not working quite right in their building, in their home, in their company, they're more proactive about looking to try to find the solution themselves before picking up the phone and calling the company. So providing self-help channels and avenues is going to be critical to success in the new realities. My final slide is what new and improved skill sets are required in this supply chain of the future. I kind of broke it down. So to me, the supply chain is not just manufacturing. It's not just component supply. It starts with your new product development, and then it includes what I mentioned, but then it ends with delivering those products to customers. So the new skill sets in the future, to me, in terms of a product or service, new product development processes that include a design for service is going to be critical. Design thinking, that's a methodology developed by the business school at Stanford University. It's widely adopted by a lot of companies, but it basically says, get out there and listen emphatically to your customers and understand what's of value to them, what their challenges are as part of your NPD process. And then finally, I would say that selling your products as a service, I believe is going to be a significant opportunity in the future. I think that's a trend that is going to accelerate exponentially. So something to think about. From a sales perspective, you're selling, people and companies are buying a lot more online today. I think Samantha and John are going to talk about that some more right after me. Remote selling skills, Alejandro talked about that. Prioritizing your revenue sources is going to be very important going forward, more important than in the past. In terms of the products and services, focuses on employee and customer health is going to be, companies are going to have to show that that's an important part of their business model going forward to earn the trust of customers. Technology enabling remote first capabilities I talked about on the past slide, including self-help. And then in general, I would just finally add that org structures that enable quick decisions are going to be key. And those are generally flatter org structures with focused teams, talent acquisition and retention strategies, and then enhanced training capabilities. I think this is going to be huge. It is huge now and going into the future for your company to thrive. How do you reskill your employees to thrive in the new realities that we're in? So that's what I've got for today. Thank you, and I believe I'll turn it over to Lawrence, to John.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. Great. Over to you, John and Samantha.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Beth, for inviting us. Thank you for Alejandro. I was very interesting to learn. And Don, absolutely worth sort of going to take up on that adopting digital and online sales. So hopefully I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see the...
You bet.
Great. Okay, so we're going to dive straight into this. And we're going to dive into the piece which is business development, it's websites. We, IVT Online, are a company dedicated to online. We spend our time, but before I dive into that, I'll just say a word. My name is John Worthington. I'm CEO at IVT Online. And waving to you, that's me. Waving as well might be Samantha, who's going to jump into this. And hopefully, we're going to have a seamless transition and show technology. But a word about IVT Online. As it says, our objective is to help companies go global, and we want our clients, and we work hard with our clients to help them grow their exports, help them grow their sales, get that brand word out there, that business, and we do that online and we do that globally. We've been around the block on this, 2002, you know, a few of us remember way back when, 2002. So 18 years ago, the world was a very different place. And IBT Online, we were helping our clients. IB, it stands for International Business. T is the technology. So we've been helping companies use today's, use online technologies, and never more so important than today. But the world has changed so fast. I mean, I look back at the programs we were running when we got started compared to today, and things like Facebook didn't even exist then. And so, you know, the whole world has changed in terms of what we can do online. Roll on a few years, IBT Online, we work with over 450 companies delivering 1,500 online global programs. And so what are those? Those are websites in different languages and in different countries. And so our clients are asking us to help them do business online in China or Germany or India, all of the world's top markets. So jumping to today's agenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about why do exporters and, you know, why do businesses need localized websites? Well, websites, you know, the first thing a business does is build a website. Well, when you're going into a new market, the first thing you should do is build a website for that market. I'm going to talk a little bit about online business development tools, then I'm going to hand over to Samantha, who's going to give you a real roadmap as to how to use this today. So just a word, and this comes back down to what has already been said, how the world has changed. Everything is global, everything is globally impact and global solutions. Things are so connected today. The examples are given. A French company, Legrand, based over in Le Mans, working over here in the United States with a supply chain, of course, over in China. The whole thing is connected, and the impact and the knock-on effect of all of this. And so all of the world is changing, and we need to be aware of that interconnection and online. So just talk about online for a second. Here are some numbers which I hope if you can take them away just as takeaways today, please just think about, you know, what was that guy from IBT Online banging on about? I've got one message to say is think that the world is online. And therefore, it has the enormous capacity for you to engage in that online world. We're today about 7.75 billion people, mobile users about 5 billion, internet users about 4.5 billion. Well, today you can connect with those people. If we scroll back 10 years, let alone 20 years, these people were offline, you couldn't get to them at all. It was a very different world. Now, if you are into social media, we're at 3.8 billion. That is a game changer. That says today I can use social media to engage with people and do as Alejandro said, you can have your sales storytelling out there and leverage social media. So it's an online world, and today it is so changed and so advantageous for businesses who can get out there and leverage it. One thing I wanted to just say is, look, and it's up there, it's growing. Whatever those numbers are, total world population, but mobile users or internet users, if you think that internet users went up in January 2020 to versus January 29 by 298 million, that's the entire size of the world of the United States population in 1 year coming online. And that's only going to go one way, 7% in a single year and 9% growth in active social media use. Just please, I want to get across one thing. They're huge numbers, and it's a huge number that you can take advantage of if you know how to use it. Social media use around the world, 3.8 billion, and look how those populations are using it, and look how that's growing. And there are many smart, savvy, successful companies today that have grasped this opportunity. I don't need to name them, we all know them, and they're out there, and they're the guys who are worth billions of dollars today, while other people, sadly, are closing their doors. Online is for everyone, and please, the point of this slide is, as a B2B, any small B2B company, look at it, all these purchase decisions are researched before sales are made, and they're researching online. So it's not only for B2B, but it is also B2G and of course B2C. So do think of it, every business today has an online opportunity to leverage today's web technologies to get out there. Trade shows, it is what has happened is a catastrophe. kicking off at the Mobile Barcelona trade show way back when, sort of January, February this year, I believe there was a website that said over 2,500 trade shows have so far been cancelled this year and thousands to come. It's not about to stop. If you look at the impact on that and where that is going to go, it means that that traditional route, the traditional sales route around the trade shows and the expos has all changed, but it doesn't stop you today reaching out as we are today, using hosted webinars, using your online presence, and using online opportunities to get in front. So today, again and again, people are going for the digital experience. Trade fair after trade fair is replacing it with an online experience. Those are huge opportunities, again, to be successful online. Websites focusing on, if you're looking at online presence, one of the things that we see that's important to get over is continue to say we're open for business. A number of people, there's an automatic, shall we say, mindset, which is companies are not, but a lot of small businesses, they've shifted and they're already selling online. Shopify, I don't know if anybody's looked at Shopify, but Shopify has doubled its valuation up to 44 billion in 2 months. That has been an extraordinary explosion. And Facebook has just made some announcements. Zuckerberg, no more recently than yesterday or the day before yesterday, talked about Facebook Shop, which is an extraordinary opportunity for companies to grab. So I'm saying, just look out there, be aware. Why do exporters need localized websites? Well, the world is online and it is a huge opportunity. Your clients, your prospects, your future employees are there all online, and prepare for the rebound. So the objective is to get found, be understood, and do business. So the core of online business, IBT, what do? We build websites. We build pretty awesome websites facing off B2B, B2C, or B2G, with or without e-commerce. Then there's the online marketing piece, which is all about search engine and what we've already mentioned, social media. Just give a little example, just to try and sort of say, what could it look like? Well, if you are an American corporation today, you've got a US English-speaking.com website, that's fantastic for the US market. But if you want to deal with the French, you could therefore put a French website up there and talk about search engine optimization in French and social media in French. Another one in Portuguese for Brazil, for example. The paradigm shift for your business in France and in Brazil will be clear immediately you start getting the digital stats in. You know, you've got all of Google Analytics and Moz Analytics, and as soon as you start getting traffic and engagement and sales, a sort of eureka moment happens and you can start developing. The world has changed. Once upon a time, the world, as Alejandro was saying, used to be sort of, you as a company was in the center, commanding communications. Now the company is off to the edge, and guess what? Communications are all being shared around you. Google, think of Google as multiple Googles. Google is not one Google. Google is in fact 192 of them, because Google is smart, intelligent, and everywhere, apart from, shall we say, 1 or 2 markets like China, where it is entirely adapted for that market. And it's at this point in time, I'm going to hand over to Samantha, who's going to talk about squeakless dog toys, which are very important today, because if you've got dogs, and Samantha has Zoe, which is, we all love Zoe, when Zoe gets a squeakless toy going, we all know about it. Samantha, over to you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, my dog is fast asleep next to me, so you won't be hearing any squeaky dog toys. But this is just a really good practical example of how someone searching for a similar product in English, in the same language, myself, for example, in Florida, and then my colleague in London, that you'll get completely different search results. So like I, for example, had Chewy.com, I had Amazon, and Susanna in the UK had things, had Yahoo News, so not even a product, but talking about the squeakless dog toys, Barks and Bunnies. So completely different results, even though you have the same product or the same search. And this goes all the way down to a keyword research. So for your products, you have to make sure that you're using the correct keyword for that specific market. So for this example, car in Spanish can be said in multiple different ways. For example, in Mexico, they're more likely to use auto, and then in Spain, they're most likely to use coche. So within the same language, you have to make sure that you're using the proper keywords for those specific countries, because if somebody was using auto and they're trying to reach the Spanish market in Spain, they would only get 9% of the results. And that's not helpful for lead generation. So make sure to do your keyword research. So as John was mentioning, step one is a localized website. A localized website has a lot of components. It's not just purely a translation. So if you're targeting Mexico, for example, you want to make sure that your Mexico website is a .mx rather than a .com. It's in Mexican Spanish. It's hosted within Mexico, and so many other localization components that you see there on the list. The key to remember is, oh, sorry, John, that this will help your company be found locally and understood locally. So the key is to remember that it has to be customer-centric so that you can build trust with your potential customers. And to do this, you have to know who your buyer persona is. So, but what is a buyer persona? As HubSpot defines it, a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So the point about defining your buyer persona is that it allows you to make sure that you're always reaching out to the right audience, so the right person at the right time with the right message. So it saves your company a lot of time and resources. And this is especially true for your international buyer persona. Your domestic buyer persona is definitely going to be different from your international buyer persona, just because they might purchase things differently from you. They might speak a different language. They might have different buyer habits. So especially in the times that we're in today, international buyer personas are going to be different. And on this slide, there's a few questions that you should ask yourself, like, are there multiple buyer personas for my export markets? How do they typically find me? What do they care about right now? How do they interact with me? So in this example, we use L'Oreal because they're frequently cited for how absolutely spot on they are with their international online marketing. And if you look at this picture and the text, it is L'Oreal assuring US stylists that they're committed to support them while we are socially distancing ourselves. L'Oreal knows that their buyer persona in the US, they are stylists that are most likely small business owners, or they work for a small business. And right now, the majority of stylists are closed. Now they're starting to open up, but at this point, they were closed. And L'Oreal, their messaging supports what they understand is the #1 priority for the US, which is supporting small and medium-sized enterprises. However, if you look at the next picture in L'Oreal Australia, the message is totally different. There's no mention of COVID-19, there's no mention of coronavirus, no mention of stylists. Instead, there's a focus on climate. And this is probably because of the horrible fires that they suffered earlier on this year. So that is what's important to them, and that is the buyer persona that L'Oreal is trying to talk to. And then in the last example, you see L'Oreal Brazil is demonstrating to their Brazilian consumer that they're doing their part to help the people of Brazil by producing hand sanitizer, which is something that they don't typically produce. So each buyer persona is clearly different, and L'Oreal's messaging is respectful of that. And now I wanted to show you this because I think it's a great example of how different buyer personas interact with social media campaigns and just social media in general. In this example, we're looking at Facebook and a very similar campaign in Indonesia versus Germany. So for this campaign, we were promoting the same product using very similar imagery and messaging, although of course everything was specific to Indonesia and Germany, so everything was localized. So if we look at the results for this specific post, for Germany, there was over 1,200 engagements, and we were honestly super proud of that because Germans don't typically interact very much with social media. But then you look at Indonesia, and Indonesia had over 20,000 engagements, which is insane. And it wasn't just likes, but they were loves, comments, and even shares. So if we stopped our analysis at this point with just these numbers, we could infer that the campaign in Indonesia was much more successful than the one in Germany. But that's not actually the case. So if we look at the next slide, if we take a look at the full buyer's journey, this is how we get a fuller picture. You need to know how each market reacts with social media so that you can look at the numbers in different ways. For Indonesia, for example, we know that the market engages really easily. They're incredibly reactive and responsive, unlike the more reserved Germans. But if you take a look at the actual conversions, and this is what really matters for companies, it actually indicates that they had similar numbers and going out and buying their product on their website. So we know from experience that you need to get those levels and engagement in places like Indonesia to get a good level of conversion, which means more sales. However, in Germany, less engagement doesn't necessarily mean lower sales. So each market is specific, and you need to take into account the market specifics, especially in a time like today. So research goes a long way, and just because one interacts more than the other doesn't necessarily mean that it's successful. And it wouldn't be a presentation about the online world without even mentioning e-commerce. So first things first, you have to get an idea of how big e-commerce is, over $3.5 trillion globally. And out of a total world's population of about 7.5 billion, 4.5 billion are online, and 3.4 billion are actually shopping online. This means 45% of the world are buying things online, which is insane. And we're still getting an idea as to the data as of this COVID-19 quarantining, social distancing era. But everyone agrees that the numbers have skyrocketed since this all has started. And then just one more note about global e-commerce. I want to emphasize the importance of e-commerce, of B2B e-commerce, because most people think that that e-commerce is just for B2C companies, but that's definitely not the case. It's a little bit difficult to get hard numbers on B2B transactions, but by all measurements, it's absolutely huge. Statista estimated by the end of 2018, the global B2B e-commerce market was valued at $10.6 trillion in 2019. That's about 3.5 times the size of the B2C market. So if you're B2B, please don't discount e-commerce, because in the end, you are talking to a human on the other side. And the majority of people that are purchasing for their businesses purchase in similar ways that they purchase for themselves. So they do their research, they take a look at competitors, they take a look at your reviews. So having a really great online presence and e-commerce is absolutely key. So now we're going to take a look at how do exporters actually use these localized websites. At IBT Online, our online global programs are designed to help your international prospects or customers or business partners find you, understand you, and do business with you. So by building a local user experience, you can ensure that you reach new markets, you can be found and understood, you can grow your leads, your international sales, and it's a great way to also build your distributor network. You can grow your brand awareness and ultimately control your online presence and success. The takeaway from this slide is that no matter what your route to business is, localized websites can benefit you in your goals. So the next few slides are a few case studies, and I know we're short on time, so I'll be quick. This company is a North Carolina company that has recently signed on with us, even though we're in the middle of this COVID-19 era. And they are typically a business that does a lot of face-to-face sales. But they absolutely found the value of having a localized online presence, redoing their US presence in order to be ahead of the curve in this time. So that is ASI. Now going into Bullman. This is a great example of how a company used localized websites to fix some long-term challenges to grow their business. So Bullman Products is a world leader in a sector that doesn't really have much brand recognition. They've been around for 150 years, and no one really knew who they were. And they also had a problem that they just didn't have enough distributors. They had they had a few, but not as many as they would like. And their last problem is that they didn't have any visibility as to who their end clients were. Their international orders went straight to their distributors, and that's it. They had no idea who was purchasing from them. So one of the ways that they use localized websites has been to reach out and identify distributors. And actually, not only did they identify distributors, but distributors actually found the Bowman localized websites as a real enticement, a real positive and advantage to sign up with Bowman. So the advantage was twofold in terms of their distributors. And when Bowman used, oh, sorry, one more note. Then Bowman used localized websites to promote their brand, reaching out through social media and getting that brand recognition in online marketing. So they had access to their end clients, which was key for them. The next example is ASG, and they have 7 localized websites now, but we started off with Mexico and China because they had great sales reps in China, but they weren't really selling that much because they didn't understand the technical aspects of the product. So by giving them the localized online presence, they were able to use that as a sales tool to really communicate with the airlines and be able to make some sales. Their ROI was really, really quick. They actually got a $500,000 deal with an airline in China because of the website. So we were really proud of them. And then the last one is AMSOIL. So this is another company that sells via distributors, but they also do some B2C. And for them, their objective was to generate leads that they can push to their distributors. In that sense, the main goal is to increase brand awareness and to encourage prospects to get in touch with their local distributors. So each one of these country-specific websites is a small website, but it's tightly localized and then marketed in each market with relative content or relevant content, sorry. And so moving on to the next section, the IBT Online Global Programs. So all of these case studies used one of these programs, starting with option A, which is a 2-market expansion and with a limited scope, so 12 web pages and 2,000 words. And by the end of option A, you would have 2 websites completely localized for your top target markets. So for example, one in German for Germany and one in French for France. These websites would be based off of your US website. But we would go through the whole localization process that we reviewed today. So, proper domain names, local hosting, SEO keyword research, just so that you would be able to be found and understood in those markets. And depending on where you're located, there are grants available through your economic development agency in your state. And then option B is anything above and beyond the scope of work of option A. So for example, maybe you want only one localized website, but a huge scope of work, or maybe you want e-commerce or website redesign. Then option B would be for you. And the scope of work determines the budget, but same case as option A, there are grants available depending on where you're located. And then option C is that international online marketing piece, which unfortunately I didn't get to touch upon too much today. But we do have a ton of free resources on ibt.onl, our website. We have infographics, we have blogs, webinars specific for this topic. But if our free resources aren't enough, then we have a technical team absolutely dedicated to international online marketing. And that includes search engine optimization, social media marketing, and reporting and analytics. So if you're interested in learning more, or if you want me to share some resources with you, there's my contact information and John's as well, and we would be happy to help.
Thank you very much, Samantha. This is phenomenal. This is great information from all 4 of you. Well, listen, we're up against the end of the webinar. If the panelists can just hang on for a couple of minutes to see whether or not we've got some questions. Let's see if any are going to come in. There's a lot of information here, and you have all the panelists' contact information. So if you wanted to contact them directly, please do. Beth, do we have any questions coming in?
I don't see any in the chat. If you have a question, if you want to put it in the chat.
or you can just raise your hand. I think it's, that means you guys have done a great job. All right, well, I think it's, oh, there we go. I think we're all set. Again, Alejandro, Don, Samantha, and John, thank you very much for this information. This has been fantastic. I'd like to spend a couple of hours just listening more. Oh, we have something coming in chat here. What have we got?
Yes, so we will, if you're interested in the presentation, we can certainly send this out to everyone who registered. So we will do that for you.
Great. Okay, well, thank you again, everyone, and be safe out there. Have a great long weekend, I guess, in the United States. John, you get to work, but other than that, thank you again for your participation, and we'll leave it at that. Bye-bye now.